Welcome to what will be the last part in this guided series for new players for Workers and Resources Soviet Republic. And the reason I'm bringing this series to the end is the fact that it's now morphing into a full-blown game rather than a guided series, which makes it very difficult to kind of keep talking about what I've been doing in this series. So that's the reason it's coming to an end. What I will say is that if there's the interest, I am considering doing another guided series where well, you could probably call it taking it to the next level. That would either be a series similar to this but with all the mechanics enabled, or possibly go in full-blown realistic mode. Although, to be honest, I think to be able to go to realistic mode, you really do need to have played at least one or two reasonable length games with all the mechanics switched on. So if you've got any opinions on that, feel free to chuck it into the comments. In this video, what I want to do is several things. The first thing is I want to wind up by talking about tourism. Now, tourism is an interesting mechanic because it's a way to make money if you do it properly, and it's makes a little bit of difference over the long term. And then in the second part, what I want to do is talk about how the way this game can make you a victim of your own success, and talk about some of the things you need to watch going forward. So that out of the way, let's just get down to tourism. Now, the first thing I need to show you with tourism is that to be able to provide it, you do need to do research. And the research tourism is down here somewhere. As you can see, it's quite a simple research trade. What you've got to do is you've got to do tourism analysis. Now, you can come straight down to here and get a tourist visa, and you need the visa to allow tourists to come from either Soviet countries or Western countries. Now, these texts outside here are called advertising in Soviet countries. What this does is increase the number of tourists coming to your visitor area, and this is something you need to research once your tourist area is up and running. It's also worth noting that these are repeatable, so the effect only lasts for so long. And then above this is you've got one here, which actually what it does is, I come into tourism, it unlocks your bigger hotels. I think when you start off, you just end up have a small hotel like that. So it's a relatively short research chain. So if you want to go that route, you can go to it quite early in the game. But be aware, if you watch any tutorials or watch any chat in the forum, don't be taken in by the fact that people say it's a very easy way to make money when the game first started, which it was. But what happened is the devs actually nerfed it over a series of updates. So it's not quite so powerful as it used to be. I think they reduced the income. And of course, what you've got to do is provide other bits and pieces to be able to make it profitable. So what the first thing you need to do when you're considering building a tourist area, one is you need a good line of communication, and this is the reason why I built this rail connection into here, because tourists will only travel so far before to get to their hotels. They won't travel for hours. I think it's about 12 hours travel time. So the best options for bringing tourists in is by rail or by air. In fact, tourism can be a very good reason to build your first airport. Now, the other thing you also want to do is don't go completely over the top with respect to building your first hotel. You want to start with one and then build up, because what the core of tourism is, in fact, I can build two actually. What we'll do is we'll build two hotels. Actually, we can put this one. We flip that there. In fact, I'm just going to push it over a little bit. What we'll do is we'll build two hotels of the same type, like that, and then we'll just connect up the road there. It's not going to win any awards, but that's okay. And we'll just connect that up there, and then what I'm going to do is just going to auto build this, because obviously we've got to get everything done in one part. Now, hotels will need a fairly big staff, so what we'll do is we'll just bring this down here and connect you up to there. You can see what you've got here with hotels is you've got to provide food, alcohol and meat, and of course staff as well. And then what you've got here is a rating. It says expected guest rating, price level. You can change the price to make more money. And then it says average trip rating. This is the rating that your tourists give based on the attractions you provide. And of course, you can see also here that you need to add heating to keep them warm. If they don't keep heating, you also need all the other services like water. So it's very tempting to build a completely separate tourist area, which I've done here. But sometimes if you've got good communications like a rail link, it pays to just do what happens in real life. Just mix the hotels in with your overall town. One thing I will say is tourists are very sensitive to pollution. So don't put them anywhere near something that will actually that generates pollution. I'm sure you get into trouble very, very quickly. So we got this in here. We're not going to worry about the attractions at the beginning. And what I want to do is, where do the tourists come from? Well, if I come over to here, what you will see is we've got tourists 13 and 14. So what we've got to do now is get the tourists from here to here. And as I say, the way I've set this up is a train. So we're going to come in here. We're going to buy an electric locomotive. Again, we'll just buy one there. And then, of course, what we're going to need is a couple of passenger wagons. Now, you don't really need to go way over the top here. Probably won't, because they're all pretty big. We've got a boxcar passenger there. We can put them all in boxcars. That's different. I think what we'll do is we'll just get a couple of those. And then what we'll do is we'll set the border post up there. And of course, we don't want workers or anything like this. We just want tourists. It does pay to put a filter on this. But otherwise, you could end up accidentally bringing in workers from the border. And then what we do then is come here, turn that off, and then what you'll see is the train. Find it. So we pick up the train here. Now it does take a little while for your tourists to kind of build up. So we picked up 5 tourists. And as I mentioned, you can boost up the research to be able to increase your tourist capability. And what you'll find is the tourists will come into here and they will head for the hotel. Probably what we need to do is, rather than drain all the workforce from there. Oops, looks like most of them have decided to come to this one, so maybe we'll come this way. Now we've got a mixture, so I think what I'll do is I'll just shut one of these down for the moment, and we'll just try and get all the tourists into one place. Now, tourist income comes out in a different way, and it comes down at the bottom here as a separate income. So it's not part of this. You can see we're making 117 rubles, 125. So it's something that will build up slowly over time. So be aware of that as well. But it will build up. Now, of course, if we actually look at our tourists now, we've got here, what you'll see is tourists have a trip rating, a budget, and also it's also worth mentioning that Soviet tourists generate rubles and the Western tourists generate dollars. So again, tourism can be quite a useful way to generate dollars without actually having to set up advanced, very sophisticated transport links to the border. So what you see is these, says here trip duration, and you can see how much they actually spend, and of course that depends on how wealthy they are. So of course the better educated they are, the more money that they will spend. You can also see that they've got demands here. So this is where the next step comes into, which is we've got to provide attractions. Now there's kind of different types of attractions, like this panorama hotel, beach cafe bars. Putting a bar in a tourist area where it is accessible from workers can be quite useful, because what you can do is if you put a bar in like this, what will happen is, sorry, I'm looking for the connection for water because there is no water in this game. This is another reason why I wasn't particularly here. And of course, the attraction will need workforce. But what you will also find is that not only will tourists use your bars and restaurants, but so will your locals as well. So this is a way of fulfilling your workers' needs besides the work of your tourists. In fact, if I build a road out this way, so we're kind of create, actually we'll build it a bit. Now, of course, I'm just throwing this together for demonstration purposes. Alright, so we've now completed research here on wind farms. Wind farms is a good way when you're really expanding quickly and you want to get power out before your power lines are out, especially in realistic mode, because you can build a wind turbine to power your local forces. Really wish I had that option in my current realistic series, because power is a bit of a headache at the moment, or planning it at the moment. I haven't built any of it. Let me just see. Now, what I am going to do here is, if I can, grand monuments, tourist visas. It looks like it's not. There we are. So this is the advertising campaigns. If we run that, when that finishes, what that will do is produce a boost into our overall kind of entertainment and draw in more tourists. But as I said, it's a one-time thing, so you can't actually do that. It looks like the train. Why is the train stuck? Have I got the signals wrong? Normally it's, if you click here, yeah, I think I've probably got a bad signal in here somewhere. Should have paid attention. Yep, there it is. That should fix it. There we are. Yep. Always the hazard when you lay in your first track is that there. So, and then just put in another building just to show you things that can be very useful is stuff like this. And of course you can, if you want to, is as long as it's within range of the hotel, you can use it. How far is the travel distance for the hotels? No, it's a bit icky. But what we could do is put in a. You can see also pools and things. You've also got sight towers like this, which can be used, especially if you've got hilly terrain. We've got flat terrain. We've got museums, National Inspirational Museum. Put it there. Let me just see if that's in range of the hotels. It's not really in range of the residential areas. What we could do is but I'm just going to put this in just to show you. As I say, it's not the best laid out way of doing things, but as I say, this is just a demonstration of how tourism works, how you can turn it to your advantage. And there we are. And then hopefully we will get some staff in. Okay, you can see here we don't actually have people in range of here, so what we will most likely will have to do is, what I can do is to just bring in some immigrants into here, and then they can work in the into this area here, so that will provide the workforce for this. Anyway, so that is a very brief introduction to tourism, and we'll just check the economy again. And if we go back to last month, so or this month, sorry. So at the moment we've earned 1,407 rubles, but also be aware that at the moment I'm auto purchasing here, and this is where the sting in the tail of the game is. That truthfully, to get the best out of tourism, what you need to do is, I find the appropriate, do this. Come down to here, put the alcohol in. Right, so just to finish this bit off, where let the tourists come in, and you see we get more tourists floating. We've now got 27 out of 117, so we could probably put in the workforce now into here. we should have the workforce in here. And of course, we've got guests in here as well. So we'll just get this guy to deliver alcohol to here. But it's about 80%. And as I say, and if you probably look at this, you will see that in here is that you will get a mixture of tourists and workers. So there is a way that you can mix the two together. And of course, up here we've got an indoor pool. I'm not sure whether that would be, yeah, that would be in range. So what will happen is that if we probably come into here, you will find that you might get tourists into here as well. No, not at the moment. They're all coming from the local flats. So that's another option that you can get. But also bear in mind that if you get a big tourist industry and a flat here and they're sharing the same resource, that could affect them in the long term. Okay, so that is finished. And what I'm going to do now is talk about how you can become a victim of your own success. And if you've been following the series, you'll be aware in the last part we got our oil refinery up and running here. And you can see it's going quite well. We are using fuel. The bitumen tank is nearly full up here. But the problem we've got now, and this is one of the kind of features of this game, is the logistics is here. Oh no, we've actually got quite a lot of oil in here at the moment. But what will happen, or has happened, is the fact that the oil here gets consumed, and eventually there's not enough oil in here to keep the oil refinery going. Because bear in mind that at the moment we've only got a few pump jacks supplying oil. So, and you can see this is steadily going down, and we don't have a lot of workforce in here though at the moment, do we? Probably because of the hotels is stealing the workforce, probably. Yeah, but that's okay. But as I said, but what I'm trying to illustrate here is that when you've got an industry like this where you're planning on providing fuel to your entire economy, you need to start looking at other sources. And of course, here the other sources are out here. If I click on oil, you'll see we got other oil out here. So in order to feed the monster of the oil refinery here, what I'd have to do is keep expanding that oil consumption. An alternative, if things get a bit desperate, is that you can bring in the oil from outside, but you don't really want to do that in the long term. The other thing also with this is if I show you the exports, if I go back to last month, you see we are making a fairly steady profit here, and I am exporting a little bit of fuel. The reason for that is that at the moment our economy is so small that we do have a fuel surplus here. And of course, as soon as this tank fills up, the oil refinery will shut down. That's okay if you've got your fuel and bitumen in balance. But if you haven't, what will happen is one will stop and then the other one will be empty. So that's something else that you also do need to consider. And of course, the other big thing is that if you're relying on bitumen exports for your economy, and then this fills up and then this shuts down, then you're losing a chunk of your economy as well. But I think economy-wise, we're doing okay, partly because I'm not building anything anyway. So now the next thing I want to show you, which is even more important, is that we're on the 7th of May now, and you can see this is empty. And this is where we become a victim of our own success. Come in here. Now I've got crops in here, but what I've had to actually do, and this started back in, I think it was about the end of March, is that I'm now importing crops from the border. In fact, what I've done is I've set this up the moment as a temporary fix. And again, it's something that you do need to be aware of. You can see we're actually importing the crops from the border. You can see the train's just going off again now. And what I've told it to do, if I can find the entry, is to keep 30%. We could probably reduce that to 20% now. And what you'll see is that this train now is going to the border. And this is how the dynamic this game is. Up until us building the second town and start providing food to it, and we had no problems. But of course, our population now is nearly doubled. That means we're consuming more food, and that means that the farm we got now, which was quite adequately supplying the crops to our food and clothing industry and alcohol, is now would not have enough crops unless if we weren't importing them. So again, this is a hint that it's time to start thinking about a second farm. And this is why it's very important in this game not to think, well, I've got all this set up, I can go away and I can build another town. Everything you do reflects on the logistics and then can cause problems with your overall economy. So you do need to keep an eye on what's actually going on here. And of course, the part of the drain now is we've got a second clothing factory here. So we are producing more clothes, which is good for the economy, because we are now, if I go back to the last month, you can see we actually made 114,000 rubles from the clothes, and also 38,000 from alcohol. So we have got a really strong base here, which we can continue to build. You can see, and in fact, if I go, this is where looking at these stats. So if we go for, push it back months like that, and then we go to close, what you'll see there is, see the way that the exports are building up. The bitumen is a bit more fluctuation. Food is a bit more unstable, and also you can, why are we importing, or still exporting oil? I think that's because I go back to this month, we're still exporting oil for some reason. I'm not sure why. Now, the long-term solution to this is actually a second distribution office, which is what I built here. This is where, when you're setting up a logistics system, you do need to be able to set up, kind of get them working together. Don't treat distribution offices as in isolation. You've got to see how they work. And what I'm going to do here is show you the long-term solution. And if we come in here and buy some cargo wagons, some box cars, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to set you up here. And this is how you build the overall logistics systems. You get load there, and what we'll do then is we're going to set you up to the silo and say, I want this supply crops at 20%. And then what I'm going to do then is put this one back. We're going to take off the imports here, and we're going to set this to back to the original 80%, and then we'll leave the grain storage here. So what will happen is that this train over here eventually will take over. I don't think it's been triggered at the moment. It's probably, oh no, it's already off and about doing this, and it's picking up the crops. So what I've set up here now is we've got this distribution office providing the support when it runs out, when the crops run out from the silo. So this will keep bringing in the crops to make sure that in here is always at least enough crops to keep the industry going. And then this one won't do anything until the harvest starts. And then what will happen is, when the harvest starts to come in, which it should do, eventually this silo will have more than 20%. And then what will happen is that the train doing the imports from the border will stop. So that's the idea. Now, just to show you the fertility here, you can see that if I click that, you can see that the fertility is really built up on this farm now. We're really getting going. You can see we've got 200% right across the pathway here. So we've now just finished our boost to tourism. So what you will see now, should see now, is more and more tourists coming in on the border there, coming in. Now, tourists aren't too bright, so what they will do is eventually they will get to a point here. So this is and you can see tourists complain just as much as the your overall people. And if I show you the individual tourists, what you'll see is their trip rating. I mean, you can push for 5 stars if you want, but this is listening to the radio. And what you'll see now is we're getting more and more there. And just to show you the economy, you can see we're now starting to make some fairly serious money here. So this is where tourism can become a little bit of a money spinner. Anyway, so back to talking about the becoming a victim of your own success. And this is where the game does need to come in here. You can see now this one's happy because this is now at 20%, and the harvest is ready to go. What I will say is over the last winter we didn't actually get everything here, but you can see the nutrient level in here now is built up to 100%. So we got a very strong farm in here, but we would need to, but in order to keep this complex going, and this is another version of what I was saying with the oil refinery, to get this going, what we probably would need to do is start planning another farm. And this is where your rail network comes in quite extensively. And the fact that I set this up the way this did puts a limitation on the track coming in here. So what we'd have to do is push the track out this way. Up over here, of course, we're not doing very much at the moment because there's no building, so all my helicopters are kind of sat back here. And if we come out here, and what you need to do now we've got the second town worked out, what you'd need to do is look at this area. Now, just to wind this video up, what I want to do is talk a little bit about how I can start to develop this economy. And part of the drive of that is looking at what your costs are. So at the moment, go back to the last month, you'll see that the moment we're not building anything, so there's no steel costs in here, but you can see electronics is slowly creeping up the agenda, and chemicals. Because we're the chemicals, so those are the two threats. But to me, the one that I would probably draw my attention to, because it's probably the easiest to fix, because we've already got our town here, so we won't have to build another town, would be to start working on our coal mine here. So what we would do is start to put together the coal mine, and just give you an example of that. Now, I have had the occasional comment about people saying that about storage. Now, it's very important to understand that storage is passive. Mines, factories, loading, unloading bays are active. So when you're planning say like this mining complex, don't connect your mine to the coal ore processing stuff. What you really want in between is intervention stores. The reason for that is that there's you can go down the mass rabbit hole, but you can see a coal mine has 220 workers in it. Each one has the potential of being able to produce 4.2 tons of coal ore. Now, if I build this mine very, very quickly, so what you see here is that the quality of source of this coal mine is 64%. What that means is that the workers in this coal mine, all 220 of them, are only going to produce 60% of 4.2 tons. So say 3 tons of coal per worker, then the full 4.2. That still means that they are going to produce, if you've got 220 workers into here, you'd still be producing a lot of coal ore. Then if you look at the coal ore processing plant, they turn 210 tons of coal into 120 tons of coal. So if you look at go back to this, a single coal ore processing plant is unlikely to be able to support the output of even this mine. This is the reason why you would put in you don't need a massive one, but you probably need to put in, say, don't like that. Well, I'll just put 1,000-ton one in as an example. What we'll do is, tip here, guys, is when you deal with conveyors, resist the temptation to do that, because we're going to have a real problem with the road. So you're probably going to be better off. I can put that there. Oh, I'm just going to put the auto leveling on. The reason for that is that because we're saying that we're actually building this over here, it's we're having to pay for the leveling, but that's okay. And then of course what we're going to come down here, and then what you want to do is plan your coal ore processing here. So what we'll do is we'll put the fossil fuel in. Where is the coal ore processing? And as I say, what you probably want to do is plan 2 of these. Of course it's going to tell me. So what you probably would want to do is have 2 of these, one side by side like this. And you can take them both out of the, put them like this. And then of course what you need here is a pretty big aggregate store. So just put another, this one we'll probably put in is a 2000. There's a road there, so what we need to do is put the road in first. Get the road down off of here. Because of course what you need to consider is the fact that you're going to need a workforce in here, here, and here. So what you probably need to do now is put in a bus platform, bus stop. And you can see we can probably get all the workers into both of that if we drop them off here. So just put workers in there. Of course would need power. And then of course what we'd do, I mean, obviously if I was doing this for real, I'd be a bit more considerate with what I'm planning on doing. It. This is just an example. I think 2000 would be enough. Now we've got a problem here now with respect to that connection, but we should be able to do it. If I put you there, and this is where, well, we could put in, actually we take out this road here. What we could do is come back to here. This is where these overpasses can become very, very useful. So just put that there. And then you can hook up to there, you can hook up to there. And then, of course, we would... Oh. Okay, just build it, game. You want to build it. And of course, the important thing you're going to need here, now you've got this, is there's 2 things that you're going to need to consider. One is you're going to need a rail connection, because of course we've got our brickworks over there, we've got our heating plant there, and we've also got a heating plant here. So you're certainly going to need a rail connection, and of course you need the rail pickup point basically connected directly to the aggregate store, so that your distribution office will actually work. Train aggregate loading. Just press that, and we can just put that there, so we can get that there. And of course the big one would be a coal-fired power station. Now a little bit of a tip here, guys, is if you're going to put a power station in, what you want to do is give the power station its own supply. So for example, and the reason for doing this is the fact that what you're actually planning is by putting a secondary aggregate store. It doesn't have to be a big one, it needs to be a small one like what we put up over here. And the reason for doing that is that by providing a separate store, if you've got lots of, and again this is about protecting your logistics, is that if you've got a coal mine that's supplying coals to brickworks and other buildings, heating plants, you need to protect your power station, especially if it's your single power source, so that it won't have all the coal stolen if a train comes here and loads up and for some reason you've got a workforce. because the last thing you want, if you're totally dependent on a single coal-fired power station, is to suddenly have that go off, and then what will happen is your power shuts down, your power goes off on your economy, and then that has a massive effect all the way across. So you do need to protect your key resources. In fact, I think what I would probably do is put the coal-fired power station down about here somewhere, because you can see it's going to need a grid connection. So what would probably do that there. In fact, I'd probably remove this and then put a power line, a conveyor belt system down to here. I'm just going to use my modded ones. I say this is not an example of good building, it's just an example of how to do things. So for example, we can come off of here. If I elevate it, and then we can put that there, and then what we can do is put back in and put this into here. Again, it's not ideal, but and then we'll just turn the money off, stop spending all my money. And then what we'll do is run this line, and this is the reason why this was put in down here. Oops. And then we hook this up to here. Something like that. Right. Right, we'll have to. You can get under here, but sometimes what you've actually got to do is put the two tracks in first and then hook up something like that. Yeah, I should have done that to begin with. And you can come there, and you can just hook you up there. Probably need to hook that there, and I may want to run long trains, so what I would do is put the crossover out way back out here like this, and just accept that. And then what that would mean is that this will then be able to supply the coal into this area here, which will then send the coal to this heating plant and the other heating plant. Anyway, so that's a very quick example of how I would expand this, but of course with a lot better layout and thoughtful. What I probably would do is bring the coal processing this way, so that I could get the actual aggregate loading about there. Then of course what you'd have to do is get the workforce out here. I would probably, given the importance of the power station, I would give a very serious consideration to building another suburb here, and then actually using a conveyor again to ensure that you've got a steady flow of workers actually. Either that or possibly a rail link. You could put a line in here, run a rail station in here, put a passenger drop-off station here, which would allow you to send the workers to the power station and all this gubbins here. Maybe a rail link there. And of course a third alternative would be trams. So what I want to do now, just to wind this video up, is talk a little bit about some of the things which I'm not 100% happy with. And this is something that you can do, but and sometimes you can fix it. And I think one thing I will say is that when you're building your economy and your logistics system, don't take the approach that you're building the ideal perfect economy. Sometimes things kind of don't work, and especially when you build your first town. Like for example, this is working quite well. We've got a nice solid farm next to it. But if you built a clothing industry and it's not really working, and it's not going to reach its full potential, this is the point where you say, right, I'm going to build a proper town somewhere else that's got better connections, maybe in a better area with more contact to farming there. So this is what I'm going to, so this is going to take over as a clothing industry. And then what you do effectively then is shut this down. So, and then you maybe give this town another industry such as tourism, because being close to the border, it's got a lot of potential from that point of view. I think up here things are going quite well with respect to this industry here. Of course, we've got to finish it, but you can see at the moment, because we're not building much, we've got nothing really going on in this area. Anyway, right, all I want to do now is just now there's only other one thing I want to show it to you, but what I need to do is let the game play on until the harvest starts coming, so I can kind of show this transfer, because at the moment we've still only got crops coming in here from our other train, and I just want to show you the swap over that will happen once the farming, because what I want to do is show you that swap over, what will happen once the harvest starts to come in. Anyway, so I'll see you in a little while once the harvest starts to roll. Okay, welcome back. You can see we're now picking up on the 20th of July. The harvest has just started, and you can see the crops are flowing into here, and the train from this distribution office now is kicked in. He's picked up 48 tons of crops, because of course he is trying to fill up this silo here. So for a short period, what we'll have is both trains kind of competing, but eventually what will happen is that a harvest in here will come in quicker than we can ship it to this silo here, and then that will eventually shut down the second train that will come in here. You can see straight away now this train is getting a bit bigger because the level of crops here, and of course this train will, you can see he's, well, I think what I need to do here is set this to 10% so we actually get decent loads going. Sometimes just putting it to 0 just means you get very inefficient transportation here. Like he's no, that's this one, sorry, we've got the two trains running together. See, this guy's only moving 97 tons of crops. That's very inefficient. Then what we need to do is get kind of enough in here, which would be about 800 tons, to be able to start actually making it worthwhile for those trains to kind of bring the necessary in. You can see here we've now got the two trains unloading. So this is now starting to get going. It's flipped over. And what I want to show you now is down with the oil refinery, because the oil refinery now has kind of reached its capacity. And this will show you why I've put this in here. What you'll see here is the bitumen tank is now full, and you can see that this is constantly exporting. If I switch this off temporarily, what you'll see is that as the fuel is being brought in here, but you can see we've now got into this state which I was talking about, the fact that the moment the oil refinery is just running purely on the output of these pump jacks, which means it's producing fuel, but it's not producing that much, because the limitation now is this is the output from these pump jacks. This is the reason why, to really make this oil refinery very efficient, you'd have to start to develop the oil fields here, and of course you would deliver if possible, would deliver the oil by pipeline so that it will actually go. But what you'll see here now is this is slowly building up. If I switch this back on again, that will immediately empty out this, and then from the economic point of view, what you'll see is that we're exporting more and more bitumen, which is making us more and more money. You can see how our economy is becoming pretty solid now, and we are making quite a lot of money. But bear in mind, at the moment I'm not building anything, so this is another way that you can actually control your economy. The tourism up here is doing quite well now. In fact, we're getting a reasonable, I think last month it looks like we've already, well, we're just coming up to the end of the month, so we're in about 40,000 rubles per month from tourism, and both our hotels are full. So this is kind of illustrates that what I said at the beginning when I started talking about tourism, in the fact that it's been nerfed compared to what it was before. I mean, you could build it up further with respect to the overall process. And what you'll probably find is that there'll be some tourists who are, yeah, we've got guests waiting without servers now. So, and we've got more tourists coming in than what we've got capacity for. It's also worth, as I say, I've already mentioned about pollution. It's also worth noting that tourist areas can be a very good source of biological waste. They seem to produce slightly more above average compared to residential areas. And then finally, we'll just come back to here. You see what we've got now is this area here. Got locomotive. What should happen is, well, we could probably drop this back down now to 0. Just kick off a train. And what should happen now, this train has got a capacity of 428 tons of crops. Because we got so many trucks running here, we will get, this will fill up, and then this will start to really push this and then shut down the other distribution office. The only other thing I will show you is that, again, we're a little bit of a victim of our own success, in the sense that what you'll find eventually is some of these fields won't be completely emptied because we've got 200% fertility. You've got to remember, each one of these large fields is now producing 600 tons of crops, and while the combine's there, these trucks will kind of keep up with it. But what will eventually happen, especially if I wasn't using this supplementary distribution office over here, the crops would start to kind of pile up in here. You can see the fertility is back to 150%, but you can see that the tractors are already out spreading the fertilizer, ready for the next season. So I think that's about it for this series. So hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found the series interesting. Any questions and comments, feel free to chuck it in the video description and I'll try and answer your questions. What I will say is, if you are interested in either a rerun of some of this series on a different map with all the mechanics enabled but not realistic mode, or alternatively a series where I would kind of show you how you can come to terms with the potential of realistic mode without actually going full-blown realistic mode. If you're interested in something like that, feel free to chuck it in the comments and I'll see if I can put such a series together. But until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.